Hello everybody and welcome to another YouTube video. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you an awesome beginner project in Python that is going to be a typing speed test. Now the idea behind this is you're going to be given a block of text, you're going to be asked to type this as quickly as you can, and then while you type, it's going to record your words per minute, and when you finish the text, it's going to tell you how quickly you typed it. This is a really awesome application, really awesome project to work on, and I'm going to show you how to do a ton of styling in the terminal. So how to do something like clear the entire terminal, write over a line that's already in the terminal, change the color of your text, change the background color of your text, all kinds of stuff that you normally never do when you're working with a console-based application. And I'm just very excited about this project because I know it's going to give a ton of value to a lot of you guys. Now I'm going to give you a demo in just 1 second, but I want to quickly mention that this tutorial is designed for beginners. So people that have maybe a little bit of knowledge in Python, have messed around and used things like for loops, maybe functions, variables, they kind of have a general idea, but are definitely not experts and are looking for some good kind of practice projects. Now, if you're intermediate or advanced in Python, feel free to follow along as well. You'll probably still enjoy this project, but it really is kind of tailored towards the beginners looking for something that's decently large. This is going to be about 100 lines of code to really work on their skills and teach them a lot. Anyways, with that said, let's look at a quick demo and then we'll get into the video. So you can see here I have my terminal open. It says, welcome to this typing test. You'll be given a block of text and need to type it as fast as possible. Press any key to start. So I'm going to start and then it's going to bring up the text like this. Now I'm not going very fast right now, but the point is that we can just type the text. And if I get something wrong, so notice I'm getting something wrong here, it's highlighting in red. So this is something that, you probably don't already know how to do, and that is pretty simple actually, but I'm going to show you how to do in this video. How to get all of the text highlighting and kind of nice styling as you see here, and then the ability to clear the entire console. So you can see here it says you completed the text, your WPM was 55. So I'm going to hit enter and it says, do you want to play again? Let's play again, brings up some text. It actually does randomize the text, but in this case, we just got the same text that we had before. Anyways, there you go. That is the demo of the project. Now we're going to hop into the code after a quick word from our sponsor. Before we dive in, I need to thank Altium Designer for sponsoring this video. Altium Designer is the world's most trusted PCB design system that enables engineers to effortlessly connect with every facet of the electronics design process. Altium Designer has used 35 years of innovation and development to create a truly unified design environment that makes it the most used PCB design solution on the market. Altium Designer provides an intuitive and powerful interface that lets you design PCBs rapidly while interacting and collaborating with your mechanical designers. The interface provides a photorealistic 3D environment, collaboration and synchronization with tools including SolidWorks, PTC Creo, and Autodesk Inventor, realistic rigid flex designs, multi-board assembly, and much more. Altium Designer is the most popular ECAD tool and electronics design software, and you can get started with it today for free by pressing the link in the description and registering for a free trial. Thanks again to Altium Designer for sponsoring this video, and now let's dive in. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm here in my text editor. I'm going to be using Sublime Text for this video. Not really that important. You can use whatever you want. Anyways, what I've done is opened up a folder, and then inside of this folder, I have a file called tutorial.py. Now I'm going to recommend you do the same thing. Make a folder somewhere, probably put it on your desktop, put a file inside of there that is a Python file, and then you are good to start working. Now, as you guys saw, we had some really nice styling for our terminal. We had some different colors, and we were able to kind of write over the previous text. Now, the way we were able to do that was by using this module called curses. Now, this is built into Python if you're on Mac or Linux, but if you're on Windows, you actually need to install it. So if you're on Windows, you need to follow along with this step. Otherwise, skip forward into the video until we actually start writing some code. Okay, so if you guys are on Windows, what you need to do is open up your command prompt here, and we're going to type the following command to install the Windows version of this curses module. I'm going to say pip install, and then this is going to be Windows -curses like this. So you should run this command and it should install this for you. And if for some reason this command does not work for you, I will leave 2 videos on the screen. They'll be linked in the description as well, and there'll be cards on the screen showing you how to fix this pip command. Now they're called how to install Pygame. Just follow along with the exact same steps, except instead of installing Pygame, you're going to install Windows curses. Now you also can just try here, pip install, and actually, sorry, this Python -m pip install, and then Windows -curses like this and see if this command works for you. And if this doesn't work, then again, follow along with those 2 videos. Anyways, this should install the curses module. And once you have the curses module installed, then we are ready to go. Okay, so I have curses installed, and this is what allows me to do the styling of the terminal. So the first thing I want to show you how to do is just to use this module and to kind of print stuff out to the terminal, because it's going to be different than what we typically do. We're not going to be using the print and the input statements. We're going to be using some statements from this module. Okay, so the first thing I'm actually going to do here is write another line. And I'm going to say from wrapper, or sorry, not from wrapper, from curses import wrapper. Now, what this is going to do is give me something that allows me to initialize this curses module, because when I initialize the module, what's going to happen is it's going to take over my terminal, and it's going to allow me to kind of run some different commands on it. So I use this wrapper, it initializes curses, and then as soon as I'm finished with the program, it will kind of restore the terminal back to its previous state. So it's pretty important that you do this. Anyways, what I'm going to do here is say define main, and inside of main, I'm going to put a variable here, which is going to be called std_scr, standing for std screen. Now, std is your standard output. So the standard output is just kind of the terminal. It's where you're writing stuff out to. And what this module does is kind of take that over and give you a screen over top of it that allows you to write stuff to the screen. Anyways, that's what this is doing. So it is the standard output screen. Okay, perfect. So now that we're inside of here, for now, what I'm going to do is show you the most basic thing, which is just adding text to the screen. The way you do this is you say std_scr dot add and then string like that. So then inside of here, in quotation marks, you just put the text that you want to print out to the console. So just like a print statement, I'm going to put the text hello world. Okay, that's it. This is just going to output the text for you. Then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to call wrapper and then pass my main function. Now this might look a little bit confusing, but what I'm doing is I'm passing this main function to this wrapper function. So it's actually a function. I just call it like this using the parentheses. I pass main inside of there, and it's going to actually call this function while initializing all of the stuff related to this module. So anyways, that's the first step. All this is going to do is print hello world out to the screen. Now, before I do that though, I actually want to clear the entire screen, because if I don't clear the entire screen, we're going to have a bunch of junk on there. So what I want to do is I want to say std_scr dot and then clear. This just clears the entire screen for me. And then as soon as I do anything, so I add text, I need to refresh the screen. So the way I do that is std_scr dot and then refresh like that. Perfect. Okay, so this will actually print hello world out for me. All right, so now that we have all of this, I actually just want to add one more line here. I'm going to say std_scr dot and then get key like this with 2 parentheses. What this is going to do is just wait for the user to type something. So that way it doesn't immediately show this and then close the screen. Because right now, if we run this code, what's going to happen is it will print hello world, it will refresh, we'll see it for like a millisecond, and then it will end. We need to add this get key so that we don't immediately close the program. We wait for the user to type something and then we finish it. Okay, so now that we have that, we can run this code. Now to run this code is a little bit trickier than your standard Python code. You actually need to run it from your terminal or your command prompt. That's because this requires a terminal or command prompt to actually show you the correct output. So what we're going to have to do here is open up a command prompt or terminal, again, depending on your operating system. And we're going to have to get our working directory, which is right here on the left-hand side, into the folder where this file is. Now, I'm going to show you a shortcut on Windows here to do this. And on Mac, I'll describe kind of how you can do the shortcut. Obviously, I'm not on Mac, so I can't quite show it to you. Okay, so I'm going to open up my Windows Explorer here, and I just have it on my other screen right now. I just need to hide some of my files. And what I'm going to do is navigate to the path where my file is. So I assume you know where your file is. I mean, you should know where you placed it. And anyways, you can see here that my tutorial file is directly inside desktop and then beginner project. So what I'm going to do is click on this menu bar here. So notice where it's showing the path. I'm just going to delete all of this and type cmd. Now, when I do that, it's going to open up a command prompt. And notice the working directory, which is on the left here, is directly inside of beginner project. So all I'm going to do now to run the code is type Python and then the name of my file, which is tutorial.py. Now I'm going to hit enter. And when I do that, notice it shows me hello world. And when I hit enter again, it brings me back to my terminal. Okay, that's how you run the code. Now, if you're on Mac, you can do a very similar thing. You can open up your Finder, you can navigate to where your Python file is, and then you can right click and there should be something that says Open Terminal. Now, if you can't find Open Terminal, what you're going to have to do is use the following commands. CD like this. So CD stands for change directory. And to go to the parent directory, you type cd ... So notice that brings me to desktop. That's the parent directory of beginner project. Then if I wanted to get into beginner project, I would type cd and then beginner project like that. It would bring me into that directory. So from wherever you are, you need to change your directories into the correct directory where your Python file is, and then type Python space and then the name of the Python file you want to run. Now, for some reason that doesn't work, type Python3 and then the name of the file. So for me, it's tutorial.py, but for you guys, it will be probably something else. Hopefully that clears it up. It's hard to explain that more because I'm not actually on Mac, but you need to open up a terminal and get this directory here on the left-hand side to be the directory where your Python file is. Or what you can do is you can look for the exact path of your file and type Python and then put the exact path. So it would be on Windows, something like C:/ and then the path to it, or on Mac, maybe Python3 and then the path to the file. Anyways, that's pretty much all that I can explain for right now, but that is how you run this code. Okay, so now that we know how to run this, let's talk about how we can add some colors here and kind of style it a little bit. All right, so if we want to add color to our text, what we need to do here is create something known as a color pair. Now, a color pair is just a foreground and a background color. So the foreground is the text, the background is obviously what's behind it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a pairing of a foreground color and a background color, and then use that pairing to print out my text. So I'm going to say curses dot and then a init underscore pair at the top of my function here. And it's important you do it in the function. If you try to do it outside, it's not going to work. You can only do this once you've initialized curses, and that's going to happen when we call this wrapper function and then it calls the main function. Anyways, I'm going to say curses dot init pair. I'm going to put the ID of my pair, which is going to be 1. And then I'm going to say curses dot, and then this is going to be color underscore, and then whatever the color of the text is that I want. So in this case, I'll go with green for my foreground color. And then for my background color, which is the second color you pass, I'm going to say curses dot, and then we'll go with color underscore, and let's just go with white so that we can see kind of, a lot of color here. Okay, so what I've done is I've said that I want to have the pairing with the foreground color green and the background color white be represented by the ID 1. So I need to put an integer here, and this integer kind of represents this pair. So if I wanted to make another pair, then what I could do is the same thing. And I would just change the integer here to be 2. If I had it at 1, then it would override what this pair was. So I wanted to change it to 2. And then I could make this something like color dot. And then can we go with yellow? Let's go all capitals yellow and see if that's a valid color. Okay, so now we have a pair with 1 and 2 as the ID. So to use this, what I'm going to do is go inside of my add str here, and I'm now going to reference this pair. Now the way I do that is I say curses dot color underscore pair like this, and then inside of the brackets, I just put the ID of the pair I want to reference. So if I want it green and white, then I put 1. If I wanted it yellow and white, then I would put 2. And if I just wanted the default color, I just remove this. I don't need to include it. Anyways, let's give this a test here and see if this is going to work. So I'm going to go to my terminal and go python tutorial.py, and notice we get green text with a white background. And then if I hit any key, it's going to escape and bring me back to the terminal. Perfect. Let's try this now with the color pair 2 and run this. And notice we get yellow text on a white background. That looks pretty ugly, but that is fine. So for now, the pairs that I want to initialize are actually just going to be red. Let's go with blue. No, do you want blue? No, let's just go with red, green, and white. And then we can use those pairs throughout the program. So I'm going to say curses.init pair. 1, green is perfect, but for the background, I want the background to be black. Then I want one that is going to be red. So I'll say color red and color black. And then I want my last color just to be the standard white text. So I'll go 3, and then this will be color white like that. Okay, perfect. And for now, we don't need to add any color to that. Okay, so now we have our 3 colors. We have 1, which is green, 2, which is red, and 3, which is white. So now that we've looked at the colors, the next thing I want to show you is how we can locate text differently on our terminal, or kind of place it in a different place based on where we want to put it. So in this std_str.add string method, that's a mouthful, what we can actually do is specify the position, so kind of the row and column that we want to start this text at. So I'll show you what I mean, but for now, if we go with something like 1, 0, what this is actually saying is I want to go 1 line down and start at the 0th character. So start all the way furthest to the left, but 1 line down. So you go kind of your row and then your column. That's how this coordinate system works. Now you'll see very quickly how this works. It's pretty straightforward, but if I run this, notice that now we're just on the second line down in the terminal. So it's very easy to kind of place text in different places. Now, if I go and do this like 1, 5, you're going to see that now we're going to be 5 characters over to the right. So if I run this, now we're 1 row down, 5 characters to the right. So we start writing from that place, okay? Hopefully that is clear. Now let's just see what happens if I actually write something else. So let's write this at like 1 and then 0 and see what happens when I kind of have 2 colliding pieces of text. So let's do this. Let's hit enter. Let's run the code. And notice that the hello world I wrote second kind of overrides what was already on the screen. So that can happen, and that will happen based on how you're writing stuff out. And that's exactly what we're going to do to kind of have our green text go over top of the white text when we're trying to type out the target text when we're doing kind of our speed test, right? So I just wanted to show you that. You can kind of pick the location on where you want this text to go. You just pass before the text the coordinates. So you go either the row and then the column that you want to place this in. And if you just want it to be at the top left, you can just leave it. You don't need to add anything, or you can explicitly say 0, 0 like that. Okay, so now we have pretty much gone through everything in the curses module. The last thing I'll show you is that we can actually get the key that people type. So notice here that I said std_str.getKey. So what I can do is store this in a variable and just print this out. And now this will actually tell me the key that the user typed in. And you'll see why this is important in a second, but we're going to need to register the user's keystrokes so that we can see what they're typing and keep track of their word per minute, right? So that's what key will do for us. We'll get the key that the user types. So let's go to our terminal. Looks like I closed it, so I'm going to have to open it again. Okay, so I've got the command prompt open now, and I'm just going to run this code. So python tutorial.py. I'll hit the key E, and then notice it prints out E because that's the key that I hit. Okay, now we've gone through the curses module. Now I want to start kind of building this speed test or this game or whatever you want to call it. So the first thing I want to do is kind of have a start screen here that says, hey, would you like to play the game? And if they say yes, or they hit any key, then we will, like continue with the game and we'll get into the game. So I'm going to write a function here. I'm going to say define start_screen, and this is going to take the std_str. Now, the reason we need to take this is because we need to have access to this object to be able to write to the screen, because notice we're using the add string method, we're using clear, we're using refresh. So we need access to this to be able to actually write something onto the screen using the curses module. Anyways, what I'm going to do is I'm going to steal these lines right here. So clear, add string, and refresh, and I'm just going to put them inside of start screen. And what I'm going to say is press any key to continue, and I'll give kind of a description of the game. So I'll say, welcome to the speed typer test or whatever, speed typing test maybe. And then we can do a new line. So let's get rid of this here. And let me show you how we can print something on a new line. So we can use the coordinate system. We can do something like 1, 0. Or what we can do is we can print this character, which is a \n. Now, when you print a \n, what this does is it brings the cursor down to the next line, and you're going to start writing wherever the cursor is. So after I print this out, my cursor is going to be at the end of this line. And if I were to print something else, so I were to do this line here, it would go right after it, kind of be squished together. But if I wanted to go down to the next line, I can put in this escape character called \n. This is the new line character, and it makes me go down to the next line before I start typing. So now I'll say press any key to begin. Okay, welcome to speed typing test. Press any key to begin. Boom. And then what I will do is refresh the screen, and I will just say key is equal to this. And I actually don't even need to store the key. I just want to wait for the user to type something. So that's what I'll put right here. Okay, that's awesome. So now what I can do is just call this start screen function from inside of this function right here. So I'll call start screen and I'll pass the std_str like that. And now what will happen is when I run the main function, we'll initialize our colors, we'll call the start screen, we'll do this, and then we'll continue. So let's test this out before we go any further. Let's go python tutorial.py. Welcome to speed typing test. Press any key to begin. Boom, and then we begin. Okay, so now that we've done that, we need something to kind of store what our target text is. We want to print that target text out to the screen and then ask the user to start typing it in. So I'm going to make another function here. And notice I'm kind of splitting all of my code up into different pieces of logic. That's a good practice you should try to get in the habit of, but that's what I'm trying to show you here. Anyways, I'm going to say define WPM_test, standing for words per minute test. we are going to take the std.scr like that. And inside of here, we're going to actually print out kind of what our target text is and then get the user to start typing it in. So I'm going to say target_text is equal to, and for now we'll go with hello world. This is some test text for this app, ! And this is what we want the user to type in. So we want to print this out, and then we want to print whatever the user has typed kind of over top of it, which you'll see in a second. So now I'm going to say current text is equal to, and I'm going to make a list. You'll see why we need this in a second. And for now, all I'm going to do is clear the screen, refresh it, and then actually print what this text is. So we'll start with that, and then we'll kind of keep track of what the user's actually typed. So I'm going to steal again these lines because we're just going to keep reusing them. And I'm going to say std.scr.addString. And rather than welcome to speed typing test, we'll just put the variable target text in here because this is what we actually want to display. So we're going to get the target text, which is this. We're going to have our current text, which will be what the user has typed. We're going to clear the screen, add this to the screen, and then refresh. And then again, we'll just get key. Okay. So now after we get past the start screen, what we want to do is call the WPM_test function like this and pass this. Okay, so let's give this a run and see how this is working. Python tutorial.py, let's hit enter. Notice it says hello world, this is some test text for this app. And when I hit enter, or any key for that matter, then it exits. Great. So now that we've done that, what I want to do is actually register the user's key presses, and then I want to take whatever they're typing and kind of overlay it on top of this. So as you saw in the demo, if they type the character correctly, I want it to show up green. If they type it incorrectly, I want it to be red. Okay, pretty straightforward. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start a while loop. So I'm going to say while true, and I'm going to continually kind of ask the user to type something in. And every time they type something, I'm just going to overlay it in a different color on top of the target text. So we're going to have to change this drastically from what I do right now, but this is just an example so you can see how this is going to work. So what I'm going to do is say key is equal to, and then std.scr dot, and then get key, which means I can remove this one right here because we're immediately going to jump into the while loop, and then we'll get the key. Then I'm going to add this key to the current text, and I'm going to draw the current text onto the screen. So I'm going to say, let's go current text like this, dot append, and I'm going to append the key. So we're going to have a list of all of the keys that the user has pressed. Then I'm going to loop through every single one of these keys using a for loop, and I'm going to kind of place that character onto the screen. So I'm going to say for, and we're going to go with char, standing for character, in, and this is going to be current text. What I'm going to do is say std.scr dot, and then this is going to be add string. We're going to add whatever this character is, comma, and then I'm going to put the color that I want this to be. So in this case, I want the color to be, let's go with green. So that's going to be pair 1. So what do I need to do? I need to say curses dot, and then this is going to be color underscore pair 1. Okay, so let's just go through this quickly to make sure everything is clear. So what we're doing is we have the target text, we have the current text, we are clearing the screen, we are adding the target text to the screen, we're then refreshing the screen. We're then going to ask the user to enter a key. So when I say get key, this is going to wait for them to type something. As soon as they type that, we're going to append that to the current text. Then we're going to loop through every single character that they've typed because they're going to be storing that in a list. So for char in current text, we are then going to display that character on the screen. So we're just going to add it, and it will be in a different color. Okay, now one thing that I want to do here is I want to constantly do this. So you'll see why I want to do this in a second, but I'm going to go here, and I'm going to add this string, the target text, and then after I add the other string, I'm going to refresh. So I'm going to clear the screen every single time this while loop runs. I am going to add the target text to the screen. I'm then going to add the other text onto the screen, so whatever the user has typed in a different color, and then I'm going to refresh the screen so that you see it. So this way, I'm not going to continually keep adding the same text to the screen. I'm going to clear everything and then add whatever I currently have. If the user adds another key, I'll add that as well. You'll see why I need this, but I'll show you if I don't clear what's going to happen in 1 second. Anyways, let's run this and let's just see what's happening. So it says press any key to begin. Okay, so hello world, this is some test text for this app. And now let's just type something. So let's go H, and notice it's showing up on a new line, all of the characters that I'm typing. So that's exactly what I expected. Now, if I didn't clear the screen, what would happen is we would write all of this like multiple times onto the screen. So let me show you this. I'm just gonna get out of this. Actually, we didn't even make a way to exit this. So I'm gonna hit Control C. Okay, that doesn't work. We're gonna have to just close the terminal because I didn't make a way to exit yet. We'll have to do that in a second. Anyways, if I don't clear the screen here and we rerun this, so let me go to my terminal. So CMD, cd desktop, cd beginner project, and python tutorial.py. Now watch what happens when I start typing, okay? So first of all, you can see that it didn't clear, but if I type this, it's gonna repeat all of the text a ton of times, right? Because we're not clearing what we previously had, we just keep adding what we had to the screen. So that's kind of what I was getting at. That's why we need to clear. So anyways, let's make sure we include this clear. And now what I wanna do is include some way for the user to actually exit the program. So I'm just gonna check if the key that they hit was the escape key. And if they hit escape, I'm gonna allow them to exit because obviously we want some way to get out of this program. So before I add this to the current text, I'm just gonna check if the ordinal value of this key, and I'll explain what that is in a second, is equal to, and then 27. Now, if it is, I'm just gonna break. What break is gonna do is just get me outside of this while loop, so we'll break this infinite loop. Now, the ordinal value of a key is its numeric representation on your keyboard. So every single key on your keyboard has some number that represents it, and this number is known as the ASCII representation or the Unicode representation. You don't have to really know what that means. ASCII stands for American Standard something, something, something. I think it's like American Standard Code Information, whatever. Someone smarter than me in the comments will tell you what it stands for. I forget, or maybe I'll throw it up on the screen. Point is, every single character has some number that represents it. So I know that the character lowercase a is represented by 97, uppercase a is represented by 65, and it just so happens that escape is represented by 27. So we're gonna check the ordinal value. When you take the ordinal value of an individual character, which is what the key will be, it will give you what it is. So if it's 27, then we'll break. That means they hit the escape key. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. We can test that out though. So let's open up our command prompt. So let's cd to desktop, cd to the beginner project, and then go Python, and then tutorial.py. And now if I hit escape, notice I'm going to exit and I am all good. Perfect, that is exactly what I wanted. Now, one thing I will do here is I'm gonna show all of this before I ask the user for a key. The reason for this is right now I'm having to hit the key kind of 2 times before it shows anything. So I want to show this first and then ask the user to kind of type in a key. And when they type in that key, then we'll add it to their current text. Now, one problem that we're going to run into here is that there's a bunch of special keys that the user could hit. For example, the backspace. If the user hits the backspace, I don't want to display the backspace character. I actually want to remove one of the characters that they typed. Now, since we're kind of doing this in curses, we have to manually handle all of this. So when I hit backspace, it's not just going to move me back. It's actually going to show kind of a really strange character on the screen. So let me show you what I mean. But if I run this code, so python tutorial.py, let's hit enter and let's hit the backspace. Notice that it's bringing my cursor backwards. But if I start typing stuff here, it's not actually going to delete that stuff, right? It's just bringing the cursor back. It's not actually deleting anything. So when I hit backspace, I want to delete the text that I was typing. So let's see how we can do that. So what I'm going to do now is after I check if the ordinal value of my key is 27, I'm going to say if the key is in, and then I'm going to check 3 things. Now, the first thing I'm going to check is key underscore backspace. The next thing I'm going to check, I have to actually look at here. It's going to be \b. And then the last thing is going to be /x. So \x, sorry, 7 and then F. Now, I understand this looks like complete gibberish, but the thing is the backspace key on different operating systems will be represented by a bunch of different characters. So it could be represented by key backspace, it could be represented by \b, or it could be represented by \x7f. Don't ask me why that's the representation, but that's what it could be. So just to make sure this is going to work for all of you, no matter what operating system you're on, just do this. Now, this is going to check if this key is in this. So essentially, if the key is equal to any one of these 3 things. If it is, then what we're going to do is we're actually going to pop off the last element from current text. You'll see what I mean here, but I'm going to say if the len of current text is greater than 0, then current text dot pop. Now, this is one of the reasons why we used a list here to represent all of the characters that we're typing, because we can very easily and quickly remove the last character from it. So what .pop will do is it will remove the last character from a list, or the last element from a list. So if I have 1, 2, and I call .pop on this list, it just gets rid of 2. So now I only have 1, which is exactly what we want. Because remember, current text is keeping track of all of the keys that we have pressed. So if we hit the backspace, we want to get rid of the last key that we inputted. That's what this will now do. Now, we just need to put an else statement here, because if we hit the backspace, we don't want to add that backspace key to our current text. We just want to remove the current character. So we'll add the else to make sure that if this is the case, we're not still adding this key to the current text. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Let's run this code. And let's hit enter and let's start typing. So I'm going to say hello world, and then I'm going to hit backspace. And notice when I hit backspace, I'm actually deleting the characters now, which is precisely what I wanted. So now that we've done this, let's see how we can get this text to go over top of the text that we currently have. Because obviously that's kind of what we want. We don't want this text to be, coming after it. We want it to kind of go over top of it. And then we want to change the color on if it is the correct character or not. Okay, so let me escape this by hitting escape, and let's see how we can go about doing that. So to do this, I'm just going to write a new function here, because I think it makes sense to kind of separate displaying all of our, text in a separate function. So I'm going to say define display underscore text like this. We're going to take in our std source like this, or sorry, screen, not source. We're going to take in our target text. We're going to take in our current text, and then for now, we'll take in WPM as well. But I'm going to make this a default value of 0. Now, in case you're unfamiliar with this, these are parameters, which means we have to pass values to this function when we call it. And if you do something like equals 0, this means this is a optional parameter. So if I don't pass this parameter, it will just have a default value of 0. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because we're going to have to calculate the words per minute in a second, and we want to display that as well. We won't do that in this step this second, but we're going to do that later. Okay, so now that we have that, what I want to do is display the target text, and over top, I want to display the current text. So I'm going to take all of the stuff that I did here. So let's go with this right here, the add string and the character, and I'm going to paste this like that. So let's now go over here. So let's say we're going to display the target text. Then we're going to loop through all the characters in our current text, but I want to place them somewhere different. I want to place them on top of this text. So I'm going to say this, for I, char, in enumerate current text. Now, if you're unfamiliar with enumerate, what this is going to do is it's going to give us the element from our current text as well as the index in the list. So remember, current text is a list. Let's say we have the elements 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. What's going to happen when I enumerate over this is I is going to start out being equal to 0. 0 is going to reference this first index right here, and then char is going to be equal to 1. Now, of course, these would be characters, but hopefully you get the idea. So then the next element would be 2. So char would be 2, and I would be 1. This gives me the index as well as the element. It's just kind of a cleaner way than just going by the index and then manually getting the element. Hopefully that makes sense. But the thing is, whatever character that I am on, so if I'm on character 0 or character 1 or character 2, according to their indexes in the list, I can use that to determine where I should place this character. So I'm going to say 0, I like this. So the point is I is going to keep getting incremented by 1. This is representing what character that I'm going to place this on. And so I want to place it on the very first character, which is 0, and then on 1, then on 2, then on 3, then on 4. So this will be overlaid on top of my target text. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense, but since I is going up by 1 in every single iteration, this means every character that I'm drawing onto the screen will kind of be incremented by 1, and it will go directly over top of my target text. So let me just show you, and hopefully this will clear it up. What I need to do, though, is I do need to call this function. So right between my clear and my refresh, I'm going to say display text, and then I'm going to pass this all of the parameters. So std scr. I'm going to pass my target text, and I'm going to pass my current text as well. Okay, and then inside of here, sorry, I'm referencing target text when instead I need to be referencing just current. Okay, hopefully that is all good. Now let's go ahead and run our code here. So python tutorial.py, let's hit enter. And now notice when I type hello, that it's going over top of my text, right? And if I hit space, of course, it's going to remove those characters because, well, that's what it's doing. But You get the idea. Okay, and then I can go like this. So now what we need to do is we need to change the color of this text based on if it's the correct character or not. Okay, but you can see that it is going directly over the top of this text. And even though it's kind of replacing the text, it looks like it's just changing the color. Okay, that's what we want. So I'm going to hit escape. And now we're going to modify the color based on if this is the correct character. Now we have what the correct characters are in our target text. And then we have whatever our current text is. So what we can actually do is we can compare every single character in our current text to the corresponding character in the target text and see if we're getting the correct one. So I'm just going to say the correct underscore char like this is equal to the target at index I. So if my target text is something like hello, and then I have my characters as like H, comma, and then L like this, if I'm accessing the 0th index, so I'm looking at the first character, I can look at the 0th index in this string, and I can check if the character I have here matches with that character. If they do, then I can show this in green. If they don't, then I can show this in red. So I'm going to say that my color is equal to, and then this is going to be curses.colorPair at 1 like that. And then I'll say if the char is not equal to the correct char, then the color is going to be equal to curses.colorPair. And then what do we use for red? I got to see this. We use 2. So let's go here and do 2. And then I'll put the color variable. So let me slow down to make sure I'm not going too quickly here. All we're doing is defining a color variable. This is equal to curses.colorPair1. So I'm just storing it in a variable. It's the same thing as if I were to directly put it inside of here. And then I'm saying if the character does not equal the correct character, then we'll change the color from the default green that I have right here to be red. And then whatever the color variable is, that's what we're going to show for this character when we draw it on the screen. And of course, we're just comparing the correct character to the current character, and we're getting the correct character by accessing the corresponding index in this string. So let me get rid of these here. And now let us try this. So let's go back here. Let's run the code. And let's hit enter, and let's go hello. And notice if I type something incorrectly, now it is showing up in red. But if I do it correctly, then we are getting it in the correct color. Awesome. Okay, so we are well on our way to completing this application. We have a lot of what we needed done. Let me just have a look at my cheat sheet here and see what we need to do next. All right, so the next thing that we need to do is actually handle what's going to happen when we complete the text. We also need to handle showing the words per minute because that's kind of the whole point of this typing speed test. So I'm going to run the code one more time and show you that if I type more characters than's in this text, we're going to get an error. Notice that we get a crash here, and it says index out of range. Now, the reason why we're getting this problem here is because we have more characters in our current text than we do in our target text, which means when we try to access target at index I, we get a list index out of range because we're trying to access an element in the target that doesn't exist. Again, that's because we have more characters in our list, in our current text, than we do in the target. So when I'm on like the 20th element of my current text here, and say my target text is only 15 elements long, then I'm going to get a problem, right? I mean, that's kind of a bad example, but you get the idea. That's what's going wrong. So we need to make sure that once we get to the point where we've typed in all of the text, or we've typed in the same number of characters as the target text, we stop and we don't let them type anymore. So what I'm going to do is after I look at the key here, and after I check if it's a backspace, I'm going to put in elif. I'm going to say elif, the len of our current text, this will tell us how many elements are in the list, is less than the len of our target text. So this will make sure that we cannot add any more stuff to our current text unless there is room to add it. So unless the current text is less than the length of the target text, we are not going to allow you to add another key. Even if they're the same, we're still not going to allow you to add anything else to this, because if you did, then that would cause the index out of bounds exception. So now let's try this and see if we're still getting that problem or not. So let me run the code. I'm going to begin, and let's just go, hello world, this is some test text for this app. I don't really care if I spell it correctly. And notice here, I'm hitting a bunch of keys, but nothing's happening because we are already at the length of this text. Awesome. Okay, so let's escape from that. All right, so now that we've done that, I want to start showing the words per minute. So we actually need to calculate what the person's word per minute is, and then we need to display that. Now, first, let's just display it, and then we can figure out how to calculate. So notice I'm taking in WPM here. So what I'm going to do is make a variable in my WPM test function and say WPM is equal to 0. So that's what it will be equal to start. Then I will pass WPM like that. And inside of here, we can just display it. So I'm going to add to the string. I'm going to say std.scr.add_string, such a mouthful here. I'm going to say in an f string, explain this in a second, WPM, and then inside of curly braces, WPM. And I'm going to put its location at 1, 0, so that we go one line below where our target text is. So what this is doing, this f string, is it allows us to actually embed Python expressions directly inside of a string without having to add two strings together. So usually you'd have to concatenate the strings, but this is a little bit nicer. You can use this in any version of Python that's 3.6 and above. So you do a lowercase or uppercase f, followed by just any string, double or single quotation marks, doesn't matter. Then you can write any regular string stuff that you would. And if you put curly braces like this, you can actually put a variable directly inside. Python will evaluate this as a string, and then you will display that. So I'm going to say WPM equals, and then just WPM, and that's all we need for right now. So if we run the code, so let's run this, and I hit enter. Notice now we have WPM, which is on the line below. So now we just need to calculate the WPM, and once we do that, we will be all good. Okay, so let's figure out how to calculate that. So to calculate our words per minute, we need to know how much time has elapsed so far in the program. We can't calculate our words per minute if we don't know how long we've been typing for. So I'm going to go up to the top of my program here. I'm going to import a module called time. Now time is going to allow me to actually time how long I've been typing for. So I'm going to go inside of my WPM test function here, and I'm going to start by putting a start time variable, which is equal to time.time. Now what this is going to store is a very large number that represents the number of seconds past what's known as an epoch. Now you don't actually have to really understand this at all. The point is that this is going to tell us what kind of the current time is when we started doing this. So right before we hit the while loop, we'll record what our starting time was, and then inside of the while loop, every single iteration will calculate the WPM based on the start time. So you'll see what I mean here, but again, just kind of keep in mind that what this is doing is keeping track of the start time. It's a very, very large number that's going to be the number of seconds past a certain date. I think it's sometime in like 1970 or something. Doesn't really matter too much. Okay, so we have the start time. Now what I'm going to say is time elapsed is equal to, and then I'm going to get the current time minus the start time. So the reason why this works is because time.time, as I said, is some like really large number that is the number of seconds past a certain date. So if I call time.time again, this is now going to give me the new time. Now this time is going to be larger than whatever the start time was. So I take whatever the current time is, subtract it from the start time, and then that tells me how many seconds have elapsed. Now what I do need to do here though is use this use this max function and say the max of this and 1. You'll see why we need to do this, but essentially this is going to result in us not getting a 0 division error, which we could get because what's going to happen is we're going to calculate the start time. We're then going to go into the while loop. We're going to immediately calculate the time elapsed. And the very first time we do this, the time elapsed is going to be 0 seconds because the time between when we calculated this and this is going to be like nothing. It's going to be the exact same time. So this will give us 0. And when we have 0, when we perform the next operation, that could give us a division by 0 error. Anyways, now what we're going to do is calculate the WPM. So the equation for WPM is a little bit complicated. I'm just going to write it out, then I'll kind of explain how it works. So we're going to get the len of the current text, underscore text like this. We're going to divide this by the time elapsed divided by 60. Now, the idea here is that if we have, say, 30 characters typed, so we have 30 characters, and we typed them in 30 seconds, then that means that our words per minute, our characters per minute would be 60, right? If we typed 30 characters in 30 seconds and we're trying to figure out how many characters we're going to type in the minute, then we need to multiply our 30 characters by 2. The reason we need to multiply it by 2 is because 30 is half of 60. Now let's do the same thing except with a different time. So let's say we typed 30 characters in 15 seconds. Well, if we did that, then our words per minute is going to be 120. The reason why we know that is because we can take our time elapsed, so 15, we can divide that by 60, and that's going to give us 0.25. So we know we're kind of at a quarter of an hour. So now if we take 30, so let's take 30, and we divide this by 0.25, what this is going to give us is 120. Now you can do this with multiplication as well. I can say 30 multiplied by, and then rather than 0.25, I would multiply it by 4. And then the way I would get that is I would reverse this operation and I would do 60 over 15. The reason it's 60 is because we have 60 seconds in a minute. So that's kind of the rationale here, but this is only giving us our characters per minute. So this right here is characters per minute. We're going to get the len of our current text, which is how many characters we've typed. We're going to divide that by how much time has elapsed over 60, and that's the characters per minute. Now, it turns out that the characters per minute divided by 5 is the words per minute. So we're assuming the average word has 5 characters. So what I'm going to do is take all of this and now divide this by 5. And now this is the words per minute. So the characters per minute divided by 5 gives us words per minute. Now, one thing I'm going to do here, continues to get complicated, is I'm just going to round all of this. And the reason I'm going to round it is so we don't get some crazy decimal numbers. We just get the kind of flat words per minute, right? I'm sure that makes sense, but anyways, that is how you do WPM. Now, again, the reason why we have this max of 1 and then whatever the elapsed time is so that if this is 0, this will just give us 1, right? If it's anything less than 1, then it gives us 1. So that way, when I try to do my division, so I try to divide the len of current text by the time elapsed over 60, this isn't 0, because if that was 0, then I would get the 0 division error. Okay, so now we have the WPM, and this will be calculated every single time we hit a key. Now, I'll show you here how this works. So let's run the code, and let's see what our WPM is going to be. Okay, so notice as soon as I start typing, then the WPM will be calculated. However, right now I'm not typing, and the WPM is staying the same. The thing is, it really should be decreasing, right? But the reason it's not decreasing is because, let me escape out of here, this line in our code, key equals std scr.getKey, is actually what's known as blocking. Now, blocking essentially means that we're going to wait here. We're not going to do anything until the user types a key. We're going to wait for them to enter a key. That's what this line is doing. It's very similar to the input function in Python, right? Now, the thing is, I don't necessarily want that to happen. If the user doesn't type anything, I still want to show the WPM. I still want it to decrease, and I still want to show the text on the screen. So what I need to do is actually call this one method here that makes this call no longer blocking. Now, what I'm going to do is say std_scr dot, and then I think this is no delay, and I pass true inside of here. Now, what this essentially says is do not delay waiting for a user to hit a key. The problem is, though, now if the user doesn't enter a key, this line throws an exception. Now, an exception is an error in Python. We've seen them. So the way that we need to handle this is we need to say try like this. We need to say except like this, and then we need to say continue. So what this is going to do now is make sure that this line won't crash on us if the user doesn't type something in. And then if it does crash on us, we go into this except statement, and inside the except, we say continue. Now, what continue does is just bring us back to the top of the while loop. It's just going to skip all of this right here, because if this line caused an exception, then this key variable, it doesn't have a value, right? It doesn't work. We don't have a key because you didn't type in any key. So there's no way for me to check what key you typed in if you didn't actually type in a key or you didn't hit a key. So I need to skip the rest of this if we didn't hit a key. Hopefully that makes a bit of sense. Let's go through an example and I will show you how this works. Okay, so let me go python tutorial.py. Let's hit enter and let's start typing. And again, we're seeing that it's actually not updating the WPM. So let me have a look here and see what's going on. All right, so it turns out I just need to save the code and rerun. And now notice when I do this, everything is working, right? The WPM is going down. Now let's just change our code a bit just so I can show you kind of what was going to happen if we didn't implement this try and except. So let's get rid of the try and except. And let's now just have key equals to this. Remember, we have this std_scr.nodelay, which means we're not going to wait. We're just going to continue, right? So now watch what happens when I run the code. I'm going to hit enter and immediately my program's going to crash. We get this no input error because this line here, right, get key, didn't actually get a key. So that's why I did the try and except. I just wanted to show you that so that that explanation hopefully made a bit more sense. Okay, so now we're getting the WPM. Now we're able to type in the text. We're pretty much finished, except what we need to do is we need to figure out what's going to happen when you actually type in all of the text, right? Because at this point in time, when we type in all of the text, nothing actually happens. So we need to make sure that the user, when they get to the end of the text, they've typed in all of the characters correctly And if they have, then what we'll do is tell them, hey, you won whatever, and then we'll prompt them to play again. So what I'm going to do is right after this, I'm just going to check if the user's current text is equal to whatever the target text is. The only thing is the current text is a list and the target text is a string. So what I need to do is convert this list to a string to check if it is the target text. Now, there's a really easy way to do this in Python. When you have a list and you want to kind of combine it all together into a string, you can use something called .join. Now, what .join does is it takes a list as an argument. So I'm going to pass to this my current text, current_text like this, and you call it on a string. Now, what it's going to do is it's going to combine every single character from this list with this string right here as what's known as the delimiter or the separator. So if I were to make this a space, then what would happen when I run .join is I would get, say I typed hello world there, I would get HE space L space L space O. It would space them all out. If I made this a hyphen, then it would kind of combine them together with hyphens in between. But if I just make this an empty string, which is what I'm going to do, then what it does is it just combines all of the characters together because, well, it's combining them with an empty string, so they're just getting all squished together. Hopefully that makes sense, but that's what .join does. It just takes all the characters and combines them together with this as the separator. Very useful method when you want to convert a list to a string. So I'm going to say if .join current text is equal to the target text, then we are done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say std.noDelay false. The reason I'm going to do this is because I want to show something on the screen and then wait for the user to hit a key before I continue. So if I want to wait for them to hit a key, I need to get rid of this no delay thing, because if it's still no delaying, then I'm going to get an error if I'm trying to wait for them to get a key. Okay, then I'm just going to break. So I'm going to say no delay false. I'm going to break, and what that's going to do is bring me outside of this while loop. So now that I'm outside of this while loop, what happens is this function is going to be done. So it's going to bring me back to where this function was called. And then out here, I can actually show something on the screen and prompt them if they want to play again. So I'm going to say std_str dot, and let's go with add string like this. We're going to add this on the second row down. So really the third row, because I'm putting 2. And I'm just going to say you completed the text, ! And then press any key to continue, ... And then I will say this dot, and then get key. So we'll wait for the user to type in a key. Okay. So let's run this now and let's see what's working, or if it's working. So Python tutorial.py. Okay, hello world. So let's go hello world. This is some test, if I could type properly, for this app, ! And then it says you complete the text, press any key to continue. Great. And then of course our WPM is 47 because that's what we ended up. So we hit continue and then it's just going to exit the program. Now, what I want to happen is I want it to actually bring us or prompt us to play again. So rather than just doing this and then ending, I'm actually going to put this in a while loop so that I can play as many times as I want. So you'll see what I mean, but let's go while true. Let's put all of this inside of here, and then let's get the user's key. And if they hit anything other than escape, we're just going to have them play again. So we're going to say key is equal to this, and we'll say if the ordinal value of the key is equal to 27. So if they hit the escape key, we will break, so they will exit. Otherwise, we'll just continue. So we'll just continue with the while loop. We'll call the WPM test function again, which is just going to rerun all of this. It will reset all of our variables for us, and we will be good to go. That's kind of the beauty of doing everything in functions. Now, I don't need to kind of have any weird logic to run this again. I just rerun the function, right? I just call the function another time, and we are good to go. So let's run this now and see if it is working. Okay, so let's hit enter, and then we'll go, hello world, this is some test. Clearly I can't type under pressure here when I'm on the recording. App ! Okay, 59, that's not horrible. You complete the text, press any key to continue. We hit enter, and what happened? It actually crashed the program. Maybe it's because I didn't save this. That would be why. I didn't save my code. So let's rerun this again and try. Enter. Okay. Hello world. This is some test text for this. Oh, I was doing so well. App ! Okay. We hit enter and then it brings us right back in. Perfect. That is exactly what I want. Let me hit escape and then I can quit. Okay, so that is pretty much all we need for the functioning application. The last thing I want to show you is how we can randomize the text that's on the screen, because it's going to get pretty boring if we just always have the exact same text, right? And that's probably not the best. So what I've done here is I've created a file called text.txt. Now you can do this as well. I trust you guys can create a text file on your own. You can probably right click on your desktop or whatever and make a new file. And what I've done is I've put some different text here on different lines. So notice every single line has kind of a different piece of text that I want the user to be able to type, and I can add as many of these as I would like. So what I'm going to do is read in this text file, store all of these pieces of text, and then randomly select one of them for the user to be typing when they're going with this program. So I'll show you how we can do that. We're going to write a function here. I'm going to say load underscore text, okay? And all this is going to do is it's going to open up this file, it's going to get all the lines, and it's going to randomly choose one. Now, since we're doing something random, we need to import the random module. So I'm going to say import random like that. And we are now going to load the file. So to load a file is pretty easy. You can say with open. Then you're going to put the name of the file. I'm going to go text.txt. And I'm going to put the mode I want to open it in. For now, it's just going to be R. If you wanted to create a new file, you would do W. So that actually is write mode. So you would open a new file in write mode and you could write to the file. I'm not going to show you how to do that, but I just wanted to mention that. But we're going to open in read mode. I'm going to say as F. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to read all the lines. So I'm going to say lines equal to F dot read lines. Now what this does, this with, is essentially ensure that this file will be closed after we open it. This is known as a context manager. It's pretty advanced. I don't want to explain it too much, but we say with, and then we have this open function. This is just how you open a file. And we say as F, which means we're going to take this kind of file object here, this file variable. We're going to store it in F, and then we can access the file by using F inside of this with. So just like the if statement, we have our indentation, right? So I'm going to say lines is equal to f.readLines. This is going to give me a list containing all of the lines of this open file. And then I want to randomly select one of those lines and return it. So I'm going to say return random.choice on lines and then .strip. Now what random.choice does is just randomly choose one element from a list. So if I have a list with 100 different things inside of it, just randomly picks one and just gives it to me. So it's just going to give me one of these kind of strings of text, one of these lines. Now the thing is, all of these lines of text have an invisible character at the end, which is \n. Now we looked at this. This is the new line character. The reason why they have this is to tell my editor to display the file in this way. If they didn't have the \n, I would have no way to know kind of where my line breaks are in the text file. So what I need to do is I need to remove this \n, which is what .strip does, from all of these lines. Because I don't want the user to have to type in \n, I just want to remove it, right? So I'm going to say .strip. .strip will just get rid of any leading or trailing white space characters, and a white space character is the \n character. So that's why I have .strip. Okay. So now we have load text. This will just give us some target text. So rather than manually coding in my target text, now I'm just going to say load text, and this will return to me one of the lines from this file. Now it's very important that this file is in the same directory as where your Python file is. If you put this not in the same directory, it's not going to work. It just needs to be in the same directory. So you can see my tutorial and text.txt are right beside each other. Now, if you don't want to do this, that's totally fine. You can just manually hard code in the text, but I figured I'd show this to you because it is kind of useful. Okay, so that is pretty much going to wrap it all up. Let's do a few tests here and make sure I haven't messed anything up too badly, and then we'll wrap up the video. So let's hit any key to begin, and let's go subscribe. So this looks like it's working. To Tech with Tim on YouTube, clearly not for typing lessons. Okay, perfect. 43, solid. I'm sure many of you can type a lot faster than that, but let's go on to the next one. And then notice it gives me a different string of text. We can escape. Let me just run it again. And okay, it's giving me another test. I'm just going to keep running this to make sure it's going through all of them. And awesome. Okay, so it does give me all of the different options that I have. Of course, you can add more to this text file if you like. So with that said, that is going to wrap up the video. There you go. We have our WPM tester, and I've showed you how we can add all kinds of styles and nice stuff to our terminal. I thought this was a really fun beginner project. I do kind of admit it's a little bit harder than maybe what I would consider beginner, but I still think you guys were probably able to follow along. At least I hope you were. Let me know in the comments down below. And this showed you a ton of cool stuff that now you can add to your own projects. If you guys have any ideas for what you'd like to see on this channel in the future, please do let me know. I'm always open to listening to your different project ideas or tutorial series or whatever you want. And anyways, I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in another YouTube video.